On a pitch up, that's skied to left. It's going. Coughlin back, it's going! And Bryce Harper adds Wrigley Field onto his career list.
2-2 delivery on the way. Look at the dust. Whoa. Right as that pitch was coming in, a big swirl of dust right into the batter's box. Look at that.
Baseball is a game shaped by its surroundings. Why do certain hits with a high exit velocity end in a single, while the others with a lower exit velocity end in a home run? Why does one ballpark next to the ocean make it harder to hit home runs, while another ballpark in a similar position makes it easier? And how does this affect your favorite team's history? Why don't MLB teams change this? But more importantly, why do the Seattle Mariners have one of the worst offensive ballparks in the entire league? Well, before we get to the content, this is a brand new YouTube channel, so leave a like and subscribe because we are passionate in bringing you the latest MLB analysis. Also, before we get into it, I am announcing a couple of our MLB The Show's 2025 winners. I am going to be pinning that below in the comments. There are still a couple more winners to announce, so if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on to win. Now that that's out of the way, let's get right into it. Oh, the Seattle Mariners, a team everybody knows for having an amazing pitching staff and an underwhelming offense every single year. But this can't be a coincidence. Luis Castillo, George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, Bryce Miller, and Brian Wu is a phenomenal five-man rotation. Offensively, the Seattle Mariners logged just 3 players who played over 80 games with an OPS plus over 110 in Julio Rodriguez, Cal Raleigh, and Luke Raley. Anyways, on paper, the Mariners are a team who can pitch but can't hit. But fun fact, this isn't their fault. I mean, just look at this Cal Raleigh single. A single on this. According to Baseball Savant, this is a home run in over half of the other MLB parks. It's like some magical force is holding the balls inside the park. Let's look at this fun graph published in the Seattle Times. This graph showcases how much extra distance each MLB park provides to hits of equal launch angle and exit velocity. The total distance accounts for factors such as temperature, elevation, indoor versus outdoor parks, humidity, and wind. This includes every single ballpark except Coors Field for reasons we'll look at later in this video. But do you notice something? Look at that teal solid line. That's T-Mobile Park, the Mariners' home field. On average, since 2016, T-Mobile Park provides 5 less feet per hit on average, but at its worst, provided 6 to 7 less feet per hit back in 2018 and 2019. That is the difference between a Jorge Polanco double and a game-changing home run. Right there is our evidence that T-Mobile Park is a pitcher-friendly environment. But let's take a look at just how pitcher-friendly T-Mobile Park is. According to Baseball Savant, from 2023 to 2024, T-Mobile Park has a park factor of 91, which is 9 points lower than the average park factor, and 4 points lower than the next closest ballpark, which is Oracle Park in San Francisco. But we'll get into that a little bit later. To put park factor into regular terms, the higher the park factor, the easier it is to hit in that ballpark. The lower the park factor, the more difficult it is to hit in that ballpark. So, why does T-Mobile Park have the lowest park factor in the entire MLB? Let's take a look at this matchup between Fernando Tatis and Logan Gilbert back in August of 2023. Gilbert tosses a 96-mile-an-hour heater on the outside part of the plate that Tatis absolutely crushes. But for some reason, in the afternoon air, the ball just hangs up and allows Julio Rodriguez to make this stunning jumping catch at the wall. Now, let's look at this play one more time. According to Baseball Savant, this baseball should have gone 408 feet. The center field fence clearly indicates it's 401 feet to dead center. So this must mean that an outside force pushed the baseball back into the park, or the ball slowed down in the air for reasons we'll get to shortly. For reference, this exit velocity and launch angle is a home run in 17 other ballparks. And the same thing happens here. On a fly ball, Alex Bregman launches to left center field. And according to Baseball Savant, due to the exit velocity and launch angle, this baseball should have gone 402 feet. Instead, it hangs up and remains in play. This is also a home run in 10 other ballparks. So why exactly does this keep happening in T-Mobile Park? Let's run through a quick geography lesson. In the United States, the wind patterns go from west to east. And without boring you, this means that later in the evening, the air is more cool on the west coast due to its arriving off of the Pacific Ocean. More cool than it is in any other part of the United States. And due to this, a phenomenon known as the marine layer is formed and creates one of the worst environments for offense in the world. Maybe other than Kauffman Stadium, but we're gonna save that for later in the video. This is why pitcher splits are better in T-Mobile Park. It's not necessarily because the ball is moving more aggressively or there is more velocity on their pitches. In fact, if the ball travels less and loses velocity off the bat, it's fair to say the same can happen to pitches, just to a lesser extent due to the fact it's only 60.5 feet to the plate instead of 401 feet to dead center. So if this is the case for the West Coast, why did Stu Miller get knocked off the mound in the 1961 All-Star game by a nearly 60-mile-an-hour gust of wind in San Francisco?
It was a tough break for Stu. Actually, the wind blew him a little bit. If you saw him, he gave with the wind, and that caused him to balk.
As small as he is, he didn't have enough ballast now, Jimmy, because Stu is a little fella.
Okay, for reference, Stu Miller got blown off the mound in now defunct Candlestick Park, but that doesn't mean it's any less windier in Oracle Park, where the Giants currently play. Look at this Mookie Betts leadoff single against the Giants in September of 2022. Does that look like a long fly ball to you? If it does, you're right, or at least you should be right. This ends up being a single because according to MSN, the wind coming in from a Covey Cove pushed this ball nearly 80 feet towards home plate. 80 feet. For reference, Oracle Park prevented 6 home runs alone in 2023 just due to wind. So why does this happen? Well, since San Francisco is located on a bay in between the ocean and the Central Valley, according to the San Mateo Daily Journal, it is sort of like a tug of war effect. The Central Valley warms up from the blazing sun and it creates low pressure that pulls in high pressure coastal breezes through the county. That's why San Francisco is so windy and Seattle isn't. And it also helps that T-Mobile Park has a dome from time to time, so that obviously plays a major important role in the data. Let's go back to park factor for a second. According to that same data, Oracle Park is the second hardest environment to hit in, meaning it's also the second easiest environment to pitch in. But why? Well, the wind obviously plays a role, and we already know that wind can help knock down fly balls. But let's look at Logan Webb's sweeper for a second. The MLB average sweeper in 2024 broke from 12 to 20 inches, as indicated by the shaded area in this zone. Logan Webb has some sweepers that fall into this category. For instance, take a look at this sweeper that forces Tyler Wade to foul it off, or this sweeper that just catches the bottom zone to put Gavin Lux in an 0-1 count. But just take a look at this sweeper that, although misses the zone, according to Baseball Savant, broke nearly 24 inches off the plate. Or this absurd sweeper that breaks nearly the same amount but also drops 6 inches. That's an insane amount of movement. But did you notice the difference between the first 2 pitches and the last 2 pitches? The first 2 happened at away parks, and the last 2 happened at Oracle Park, the stadium where wind influences everything. Now you may be asking, what about the marine layer in San Francisco? And that's a great question that I'll answer a little bit later in this video. But enough of the West Coast. Let's hop over to the Midwest and the East Coast to figure out why Kauffman Stadium and Citi Field both use wind in a different way to influence offense. To help understand how wind works in each ballpark, let's look at some graphs. This first one comes from Clay Nunnally and shows just how insanely difficult it is to track wind patterns inside a stadium. Just because the flag is going in one direction doesn't mean that's where all of the wind in the stadium is blowing. Plus, this is just one stadium with its own set of unique characteristics. Just imagine how this would change if, say, we were at Dodger Stadium, Coors Field, or Yankee Stadium. Each park has a unique set of characteristics that are going to influence the wind. But there's one more important factor that plays a huge role. But for now, here's another fun graph from MLB.com showcasing which stadiums influenced balls the most from 2023 to 2024. At the front of the graph, we see Kauffman Stadium, which knocked down over 60 home runs. And just to show you how windy Kauffman Stadium is, look at this graph from StatCast showcasing showcasing just how crazy the winds were in Kauffman Stadium on opening day of 2023. Next on the list is Citi Field, which, similar to Kauffman Stadium, has also knocked down many long balls. Now let's look at this Tommy Pham homer back in June of 2023. You see Kikuchi hangs a slider in the upper part of the zone, and Pham absolutely hammers it off the bat 106 miles per hour for his 5th big fly of the season. But there's just one problem. According to StatCast, this ball only went out because the winds were blowing 23 miles an hour in the direction of the home run. In fact, it says it pushed the ball 56 feet out of the park. Otherwise, it would have just been a fly out or a double. That same game, Brandon Belt did something similar, smashing this Dominic Leone slider for a 427-foot dead center bomb. But if we check StatCast, we see that the wind pushed it 38 feet straight into the Big Apple. Anyways, the point I'm making is that on June 4th, 2023, it was just extremely windy in Queens. Now, we know how this affects a hitter's approach, but how do pitchers deal with this? Well, it's entirely ballpark dependent. If you're in a dome like Chase Field or Marlins Park, you don't have to worry about anything. But if you're in, let's say, Wrigley Field, the wind will be coming in off Lake Michigan, and you should probably figure out which direction the wind is blowing. For example, in case the wind is blowing to left field, you might want to pitch lefties inside and righties outside to try and induce contact to right field so you can negate the effects of the wind blowing to left field. But that's just Wrigley Field. Maybe you're downtown at Guaranteed Rate Field where the White Sox play. You might think that wind patterns would be similar, but since Guaranteed Rate Field is just one of 2 ballparks that face south, the wind patterns will be completely different due to the fact the pitcher is now facing north instead of south. And I know I'm getting granular here, but just stay with me. But the wind isn't the reason why balls fly out of Coors Field as fast as Ellie De La Cruz trying to steal a base. In fact, nothing we've discussed up to this point tells us why Coors Field is such an outlier. Now, Coors Field is obviously an anomaly. And to show you this, let's just look at Todd Helton's baseball reference page for a second. 369 home runs, nearly 1,000 total extra base hits, over 60 career BWAR, and a career 953 OPS. This guy's a stud, and just by the stats, he should be a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame, right? Well, unfortunately, after Helton became eligible in 2018, it took him 6 years to make the Hall of Fame. Why? Because of the famous Coors effect. Baseball Savant's park factor for Coors Field is 112. The league average is 100. So this means that Coors Field is 12% more friendly to batters than the average ballpark. Why? Well, Coors Field is 5,000 feet above sea level, and due to being higher up in elevation, the air is thinner, which allows balls to travel more and makes it more difficult for a pitcher to get any movement on their pitches. What causes a ball to cut or sink when pitched or drop out of the sky once hit is friction with the air. Since the air is thinner, there isn't as much friction as other ballparks. A double that's hit with similar exit velocity and angle in T-Mobile Park could be a home run in Coors Field. That's why players like Todd Helton, who play in Coors Field the majority or all of their careers, are looked at differently. It's also why pitchers in Coors Field struggle so much. Not only do the balls travel more because the air is thinner, but the ball won't break as much since there's less friction in the air. And although a fastball's velocity might increase, it's as flat as a baseball card, and so making it easier to hit. Now, the Colorado Rockies have come up with a way to try and pitch around this, but we're going to get into that in a second. Now, let's recap. We've established that multiple outside factors can affect a baseball's path, but they aren't the main factor as to why balls get out of the yard. That would be humidity and the weather. Now, remember back to when you were maybe 7 or 8 years old playing Little League Baseball? It's mid-June. It's absolutely blazing hot outside. That's probably when the 40 or 50-year-old coach comes over to you, coughing and hacking, saying something along the lines of, "Hey kid, you know the ball travels further when it's hot out, right?" Now, whether or not your Little League coach was your dad, a friend's dad, or some old guy who had no kids on the team and was just suspiciously invested, that is a good piece of information to learn. As we all know, when air is hot, it's less dense and the ball can penetrate the air easier. But when it's cold, the opposite happens, and it becomes more difficult for the ball to fly as the air becomes denser. answer. According to Alan Nathan, a former physics professor at the University of Illinois, the ball can travel up to 3 feet further every 10 degrees over 75. But let's take this one step further and talk about humidity. Humidity is how much water vapor is present in the air. The best way to comprehend this is to think of the difference between a 100-degree day in Arizona, where it's extremely dry, and a 100-degree day in moist Louisiana. The difference is the feeling of the heat. It feels worse in Louisiana because when you're sweating, the sweat on your skin can't evaporate into the air as well as if you were in Arizona because there's already so much moisture in the air. Okay, I promise we're done with the physics and the science. So why is this important? Because water vapor is less dense than air. So the more water vapor in the air, the easier it is for the ball to travel. The only issue with this is that the longer a ball's in play, the more moisture it will absorb from the air. This will make it harder for the ball to travel. Due to this, it's in the hitter's best interest for the pitcher to use a new ball basically every pitch. So how do teams deal with this? Each ballpark has unique pressure, weather, wind, altitude, and several other factors that influence baseballs. Well, last season during opening day in Colorado, Brian McMahon hit this walk-off grand slam to send the Rockies faithful home happy. The Rays only got in this position to begin with after closer Pete Fairbanks walked 3 batters in a row before getting pulled and registering 0 innings pitched. After the game, Fairbanks had something interesting to say.
Pete, just can you kind of run through what was going on in the 9th inning? It looked like maybe you didn't like some of the balls that were coming in.
Yeah, they were horrible. You can mark that down all caps for me. Horrible. No excuse, though. Didn't throw strikes, and that's what happens when you don't throw strikes. You get punished for it. So I'd love to see those come out of the humidor tomorrow in a little better shape before they get rubbed up.
But did you catch that last part? The humidor? Since Coors Field is so high in altitude, the balls tend to get dry due to the fact there is less moisture in the air, a fact that we've already covered in this video. But to counteract this, they actually use a humidor to get the balls to be as standard as possible and as similar to other stadiums around the league. What's funny about Fairbanks' claims is there's actually a joke video the Rockies published back in 2007 showing players putting the good balls in the home team bucket and the bad balls in the away team's bucket. But that's besides the point. Fun fact though, the Rockies aren't even the only team to use humidor. As of 2022, every single team in the MLB is required to store balls in a humidor. Another thing the Rockies have perfected is how to pitch at high altitude. Listen, you're never going to completely beat the offensive environment that high altitude creates. So the best option is to simply pitch around it. For example, take a look at this graph. It showcases that as of lately, the Rockies find that using fastballs in specific counts benefits their pitchers more than the rest of the MLB. Now, this is probably due to the fact that although the balls don't move as much, a fastball will increase in velocity in high altitude. And the Rockies are betting they'll just be able to outpower the visiting teams. But considering the fact that they've never won the NL West in their entire history, they might need to find another strategy. Now, if you think that's cool, what if I told you a team was literally changing how their stadium looked just so that they could create a wind tunnel to create more home runs? The theory goes that the Cleveland Guardians have removed portions of crates and seating in order to create a wind tunnel in the outfield. While it is true they have removed sections of seating and decor, the Guardians are saying it's not to create a wind tunnel. But in 2023, the Guardians hit just 124 home runs. Then in 2024, they went yard 185 times, meaning the home runs the teams produced jumped up over 60 home runs. And that's without the Guardians going out and making any large free agency acquisitions. Plus, keep in mind, Steven Kwan, a player notoriously known for his ability to get on base and get singles and doubles, hit 14 home runs in 2024. His career total prior to 2024 was just 9, meaning he hit 5 more home runs in one season than he did in his entire career. But for now, back to weather. Every single team around the league is tinkering with grips, pitch selection, pitch mixing, arm angles, stadium arrangement, and more, just so that they can fit their respective ballpark's unique set of weather factors and maximize pitching and offense. The reason many people love baseball, including myself, is because it's not some sort of simulation you can do on a computer. Now, I love sabermetrics metrics as much as the next guy, but there are simply things you cannot predict with them. The best example of this has to be the Ted Williams infamous red seat home run. A home run hit so hard that people today think it was fake. Even David Ortiz tried to reach that distance with a metal bat and still couldn't. Baseball is a game heavily influenced by its surroundings, and to be honest, all of the things discussed in this video have an effect on whether or not the baseball is easier to hit, goes further, and moves differently. It's not just one factor that changes the way a baseball moves once it leaves the pitcher's hand, or how it flies after bouncing off the hitter's bat. It's a total accumulation of all these factors at once, and that's what makes baseball the best sport on the planet. Pressure, humidity, weather, wind, elevation, and many other aspects have an invisible role in the game. A game played at 1 p.m. in April on the East Coast is a completely different game than one that's played at 9 p.m. in August on the West Coast. Every single MLB stadium has a completely unique ratio of all of these aspects, and that's what makes the game so beautiful. Do you think I missed any other factors in this video? Is there anything else that affects how a baseball moves? Or is there another topic you'd like to see me cover? Well, let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more hard-hitting baseball analysis. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.